Did you know that when Jesus was alive, they didn't call him Jesus? They also didn't call him Yeshua. See, a lot of people are kind of caught up on something because they don't understand what transliteration is. So today we're going to explain that. And quite simply, the distinction between a translation and a transliteration is that a transliteration is just pronouncing a name or a word in another language. It is not translating that name into another language, it is just pronouncing it in the other languages. For example, most scholars agree that Jesus and his disciples, even though they could probably read and speak in Hebrew and Greek, the primary language that would have been spoken would have been Aramaic. And so most likely, the most common name that Jesus was referred to as was Yeshua. Yeshua would be an Aramaic transliteration of Yeshua, the same way that Yeshua or Yeshua transliterated into Greek is Jesus. That transliterated into Latin would be Jesus. That same name transliterated into Spanish would be Jesus. And that same name translated into German would be Jesus. And that exact same name transliterated into English would be Jesus. So when you see people saying that you're not supposed to call him Jesus or asking if it's okay to call God Jesus, that is totally okay. That is us pronouncing God's name that he took on whenever he became incarnate as a man. That is us pronouncing his name in English. We're not changing his name. We're not translating his name. In fact, the translation of Jesus' name is literally Yahweh's salvation. But to take it a step further, Yahweh means I am. So quite literally, if you translated the name Jesus into English, it would be I am salvation. But we don't say that. We don't call Jesus I am salvation. We call him Jesus. We pronounce his name. Because we transliterate it, we don't translate it. The same way that if your name was Jana and you went to Mexico, they would call you Hannah. The same way that if Jana went to Germany, they would call her Jana. They're not translating your name, they are transliterating your name. They are pronouncing your name in their language. This is not a bad thing at all. This is a very normal thing that we see happening immediately. Why? Because immediately the New Testament was written in Greek. And in Greek, they didn't call Jesus Yeshua, they didn't call him Yeshua, they called him Jesus. In fact, if you look at like the acronym of an ichthys, so the ichthys is that Christian symbol that you'll see right here. It looks kind of like a fish. That's because the word for fish is ichthys. But ichthys was literally an acronym back then. And it stood for Jesus Christus Theo Huio Satar, which means Jesus Christ, God's Son, Savior. So quite literally, that Christian fish was immediately using a transliteration of Jesus' name, calling him Jesus, rather than calling him Yeshua or Yeshua. So it is totally okay for us to call God by his name whenever it is transliterated into other languages. This is actually where we get Jehovah from. Because God's name being Yahweh was transliterated to be Yehovah, and then from there it was transliterated into English as Jehovah. I still like to call him Yahweh, but that doesn't make much of a difference. So if you want to refer to Jesus as being Yeshua, or referring to him in his full title and name as Yeshua HaMashiach, that's totally okay. If you want to refer to him as Jesus Christus, that is totally fine. Or if you want to refer to him as Jesus Christ, that is all okay. The only thing that I would be kind of pressing you on and wanting to know from you is why would you pronounce his name in another language? Like, I like to pronounce God's name in Hebrew, which is Yahweh. I like to pronounce it that way. The reason why I like that is because that was the original language that God gave that name in, and I think that's beautiful. And so Jesus being Jewish, he potentially did have a Hebrew name, which would have been Yeshua. And it's okay to call him that, as long as you're calling him that for the right reason. But if you're calling him that because you're thinking like, oh, well, he's not going to hear your prayers if you're not calling him by the correct pronunciation in Hebrew, then you're doing it for the wrong reason. If you like the way it sounds and you want to call him by that name in that transliteration, that's okay. But whenever someone refers to Jesus as Jesus, do not get upset at them for calling Jesus by his name. I hope this made sense. Let me know what's next. Follow me on X, YouTube, and Instagram. Go support me over on Patreon. Go to taco-talks.com if you want to buy books, hats, stickers, shirts. Make sure you like, favorite, comment on this video, share it with everybody that you know, because the new TikTok algorithm is really trying to bury every one of my videos. But in the comments, let me know which transliteration you prefer to refer to Jesus as. Thank you guys. God bless.